In just 2 minutes, Jasmine Crockett cornered Donald Trump with the question America feared most. Words or bullets which killed Charlie Kirk? The chamber froze, the nation shook. Was this the moment Trump finally ran out of answers? Hold tight, what you're about to see could rewrite history before your eyes. The gavel slammed like a gunshot. Cameras zoomed in. On every screen in America, the words emergency session burned in red. The marble chamber was suffocating, the kind of silence that bends air before a storm breaks. Jasmine Crockett did not wait. She leaned forward, her voice slicing through the stillness. How many more must fall before you admit your words have consequences? Gasps spread through the gallery. Senator Dick Durbin shifted uncomfortably, while Judge Merrick Garland's eyes narrowed, studying every flicker on Trump's face. Donald Trump lifted his chin slowly, deliberate, refusing to blink. His tone came cold but steady. Words don't kill. Hatred from both sides does. Reporters scribbled. Representative Adam Schiff whispered, "He's trying to flip the blame." Crockett's lips curved into something between disdain and fury. Hatred doesn't go viral by accident. It needs a microphone. And you held it for years. Trump sneered, shaking his head. You want to pin a tragedy on me because you've got no argument left. Pathetic. Crockett slammed a folded sheet on the desk. Pathetic, tell that to the families bearing their sons. Tell that to the mother who watched Charlie Kirk quote you, then collapsed 2 minutes later. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Judge Sonia Sotomayor, seated as an observer, whispered audibly, 2 minutes is no coincidence. Trump leaned closer to the mic, his voice dripping contempt. You love the spectacle, Congresswoman, but remember, spotlights burn the performer too. The room froze. The duel had only begun. The fluorescent lights hummed like nervous witnesses. The gavel struck again, pounding through the chamber, demanding order that did not exist. Reporters bent forward, pens scratching like knives. Every camera lens seemed to lean closer, waiting for a rupture. Donald Trump gripped the microphone, voice sharp yet controlled. I condemn violence many times. Show me one command where I ordered it. The words landed heavy, a challenge thrown across the aisle. Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She rose, holding a thin document. Mr. Trump, condemning violence on paper means nothing when on stage you cheer the crowd with "Fight like hell." Which record should America believe, the paper or the rally? Murmurs tore through the gallery. Judge Elena Kagan, sitting silently in the observer row, leaned to Senator Chris Coons and whispered, "He's cornered unless he proves consistency." Trump's smirked eyes narrowing at Crockett. You twist slogans into weapons. That's dishonest. I told people to fight for ballots, not bullets. Crockett shot back. Then why did armed men storm state capitals chanting your slogans? Did they mishear you, or did they hear you too well? The audience split in real time. Half nodded furiously at Crockett's accusation, others clapped at Trump's defiance. Social networks exploded. Hashtags flared. Fight like hell, Trump on trial. Crockett versus Trump. Representative Jamie Raskin leaned forward. This is the definition of accountability, her asking him, dodging. Trump pounded the table, once his restraint cracking just slightly. Dodging, I gave Americans hope. You're the ones turning grief into theater. Shameful. Crockett leaned closer, her eyes locked on his. The theater ends when the coffin closes, Mr. Trump. Ask the Kirk family if this is a performance. Gasps rattled the chamber. Even Chief Justice John Roberts, present as an observer, lowered his gaze, lips pressed tight. Outside, chants began to thunder louder, vibrating against the stone. How many more? How many more? The silence that followed inside was suffocating, thick as smoke. The standoff was no longer just words. It was war without bullets. Crockett slammed a tablet onto the desk screen, glowing under the chamber lights. Her voice cut like steel. 7:14, Charlie Kirk shouts your line. If they come for me, they come for you. At 7:16, he drops dead. 2 minutes, Mr. Trump. 2 minutes from your words to a coffin. The room erupted with gasps. Chief Justice John Roberts, seated as observer, stiffened. Reporters nearly leapt over each other, fingers firing across keyboards. Trump leaned forward, tone clipped, eyes cold. Coincidence is not causation. Timing is not guilt. You need intent, not a stopwatch. Crockett's eyes narrowed. She raised another sheet. Exhibit DOJ verified server logs. Audio proves your words hit the crowd 38 seconds before his final breath. FBI Director Christopher Wray authenticated it. Do you call your own government a liar? Trump smirked, venom in his voice. I call them corrupt. I said fight for ballots, not bleed on stages. If lunatics twist my words, blame them, not me. Crockett's voice snapped like a whip. Then say it here, right now. Tell America that line was reckless and you regret it. Trump slammed his palm on the table. I regret nothing. I defended patriots while you Democrats cheer for chaos in the streets. Don't lecture me on blood. The chamber gasped louder. Senator Lindsey Graham whispered, he just doubled down. Justice Sonia Sotomayor muttered under her breath, arrogance disguised as strength. Crockett didn't blink. She leaned so close her words felt like a blade pressed against his throat. 2 minutes. That's the corridor between rhetoric and murder. You built it. He walked it. And now the nation pays the toll. Trump sneered, jaw tight. You want a villain so badly, Congresswoman, you'll invent ghosts to hang me with. Crockett's reply came low, merciless. Not ghosts, Mr. Trump. Receipts. And receipts don't lie. Phones buzzed. 2 minutes detonated, online anchors cut live, and the chamber felt less like a hearing and more like a courtroom where history itself had taken the bench. Crockett didn't hesitate. She leaned into the mic, her tone ice cold. Truth doesn't leave bodies on stages, Mr. Trump. Truth doesn't send families to morgues with slogans carved into their grief. The chamber cracked with murmurs. Senator Elizabeth Warren shook her head in disbelief. Justice Clarence Thomas, stone-faced in the observer's row, scribbled something on a notepad without looking up. Trump raised his chin, his reply measured but edged with contempt. Truth also saved millions. Jobs created borders, secured peace treaties, signed. Shall I list them one by one? Or do you prefer to cherry-pick corpses instead of accomplishments? Gasps erupted. The word corpses sent shockwaves through the gallery. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez muttered audibly, That's grotesque. Crockett's eyes flared. You dare weigh coffins against payrolls? You're standing on the bones of your own allies and you call that balance? Trump leaned forward, smirking. Balance is leadership. I built prosperity while you built hashtags. You think grief is governance? Pitiful? The insult struck like a slap. Reporters scrambled to type pitiful into their drafts. The word trended instantly. Crockett fired back, voice slicing through the chamber. Pitiful is a leader who cheers while mobs storm state houses, screaming his lines. Pitiful is hiding behind statistics while mothers bury their sons. Do you call that leadership or cowardice in a red tie? The gallery roared. Judge Neil Gorsuch, seated in the corner, whispered to Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, He's losing the room. Trump's eyes narrowed, his voice dripping venom. You wouldn't know leadership if it stared you in the face. I built towers, you build tantrums. You call yourself bold. You're a parasite, feeding on tragedy. Crockett slammed her palm on the table, making the microphones tremble. No, Mr. Trump, I'm a surgeon cutting through your excuses. Truth saves when it heals. Yours bleeds when it inflames. That's the difference between service and self-worship. The silence that followed was brutal, every second heavier than the last. The crowd outside chanted louder, rattling the windows. How many more? How many more? Inside, the duel sharpened. The battle lines weren't drawn in ink or policy. They were carved in words that could either rescue or bury a nation. Trump straightened his papers, his voice firm, resonant enough to pierce through the uproar. Congresswoman, you parade tragedies as if they're the whole story. But let's remind America of facts. Under my watch, unemployment dropped to the lowest in 50 years. 4 million jobs created before the pandemic. Wages rose. That's not rhetoric, that's record. The chamber buzzed. Some Republicans nodded, scribbling notes like ammunition. Crockett fired back instantly. 4 million jobs don't resurrect 400 bodies. Prosperity doesn't excuse a funeral every week tied to political rage. Numbers don't cleanse blood. Trump slammed a sheet on the desk. And what about Operation Warp Speed vaccines delivered in record time? Trade deals renegotiated, billions saved. Middle East accords signed preventing wars your party said were inevitable. You think families only count coffins. They count paychecks and peace too. Senator Bernie Sanders muttered peace. Tell that to the mobs he sent to Capitol doors. Crockett held up her own stack of documents. Here's another record. 360 documented incidents of political violence in 5 years. Most sparked at events with your name on the banner. Those are DOJ certified, not mine. Trump cut her off, his voice rising but controlled. And how many did I order? 0. Show me one directive where I commanded violence. You can't, because it doesn't exist. The room stilled. Reporters' pens froze midair. Crockett leaned forward, her words slow, deliberate. You didn't need to order it. You normalized it. You taught people to chant enemies instead of opponents. You taught them fury equals patriotism. That's not leadership, it's gasoline. Trump's reply came sharp as a blade. And yet that so-called gasoline rebuilt an economy, secured borders, forced NATO to pay their share. You call it fire, I call it strength. Americans weren't bleeding, they were thriving. The word thriving echoed like a dare. Justice Samuel Alito, arms crossed, whispered audibly, he's reframing blood as prosperity. Crockett's retort landed with surgical precision. Thriving Charlie Kirk's family doesn't call it that. Mothers don't call it that. Students hiding under desks don't call it that. Thriving ends where gunfire begins. Trump leaned closer, eyes locked. And weakness begins when leaders can't separate random violence from national progress. You're weaponizing grief. I'm defending the results. The gallery split, half clapping, half booing. Hashtags flared, jobs versus blood receipts, truth on trial. Crockett raised her voice above the chaos. Then tell America, Mr. Trump, how many bodies equal one trade deal? How many funerals equal one jobs report? Give us the math, because families are counting. The silence that followed wasn't relief, it was suffocation, as if the chamber itself demanded his answer. The chamber was suffocating. Every breath felt like glass. The audience was split down the middle, half glaring at Trump with clenched jaws, half nodding, as if his defiance was oxygen. Reporters' fingers bled across keyboards, headlines forming before the words even finished. Crockett leaned into the microphone, her tone cutting. You brag about prosperity while parents plan funerals. You boast about treaties while coffins are lowered. You want credit for growth, but no blame for decay. That's cowardice disguised as confidence. Trump chuckled darkly, shaking his head. Cowardice I faced down China, Russia, NATO freeloaders. You hide behind hashtags. I delivered peace in the Middle East. You deliver sound bites for TikTok. The insult cracked the gallery. Gasps ricocheted. Representative Jamie Raskin muttered, peace, tell that to families cleaning broken glass from Capitol windows. Crockett raised a folder high. Receipts, Mr. Trump. DOJ records 360 acts of political violence tied to rallies carrying your slogans. 37 injured, 8 killed. Verified by Director Wray himself. Trump's face hardened. And none ordered by me, not one. You twist passion into murder and call it proof. That's not evidence, it's theater. Chief Justice John Roberts shifted in his seat, lips pressed tight. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson whispered, theater doesn't leave bullet holes. Crockett's voice sharpened further. Theater. Then tell Charlie Kirk's mother her son's death was a stage act. Tell her she buried a prop, not a son. The gallery gasped so loud it rattled the chandeliers. Senator Lindsey Graham put his face in his hands. Reporters typed furiously, tell her she buried a prop. The words hit social feeds like a bomb. Trump leaned forward, jaw tight, voice low. You are cruel. You weaponize grief like a scalpel, slicing truth into lies. I defended millions. I never sanctioned murder. You know it. Crockett didn't blink. Cruel is teaching citizens to chant enemies instead of neighbors. Cruel is watching coffins pile and calling it coincidence. Cruel is silence dressed as strength. The silence that followed was unbearable. Viewers across the nation leaned closer to their screens, wondering who would break first, the former president, clinging to his record, or the congresswoman wielding grief like a blade. The chamber was already split open with tension when Jasmine Crockett pulled out a printed sheet, the DOJ watermark stamped faintly at the bottom. Her voice was steady but lethal. Exhibit F, internal campaign email dated 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk's rally. Subject line, talking points. Quote, use the line about enemies. It gets the crowd fired. Gasps burst through the gallery like shrapnel. Reporters bolted upright, pens scratching. Justice Elena Kagan whispered to Chief Justice Roberts, that's direct. That's premeditated. Trump leaned forward, his jaw clenched, but his tone deceptively calm. Anyone can forge an email. Washington leaks lies daily. You expect me to believe a document shoved in front of me mid-hearing Crockett slammed the page down. It isn't shoved, it's authenticated. DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz confirmed the metadata, drafted 9:47 p.m., circulated to 12 staffers on your campaign server. SHA 256 verified. You can scream conspiracy, but you can't scream away math. Trump's voice cut back sharp as glass. Metadata. That's your smoking gun. I built peace deals and trade reform, and you drag in tech jargon to smear me pathetic. Crockett leaned in, eyes burning. Pathetic is weaponizing fear like a campaign slogan. Pathetic is reducing democracy to enemies and allies, a script that ends in blood. The audience shifted uneasily. Senator Josh Hawley muttered, if this holds, it's dynamite. Senator Amy Klobuchar snapped back. It already detonated. Trump tried again, louder now. I never wrote that email. Maybe some overzealous staffer did, but don't hang me with words I didn't type. Crockett didn't blink. Leadership isn't about pressing send. It's about what culture you sign off on. And your culture was clear: escalate, divide, ignite. The words came from your circle, your brand, your voice amplified. The gallery roared, some jeering, some clapping. Hashtags flared instantly. Use the line, enemy politics receipts. Justice Sonia Sotomayor whispered, almost audible on the mic. This is the first fracture. Crockett's final strike was surgical. You asked me for proof of intent. Here it is, an email instructing your team to inflame enemies. You built the playbook. Now you want to disown the game. Trump's mask cracked. He pounded the table, his calm eroding under the weight of printed ink. This is a witch hunt, lies dressed as evidence. You want me guilty before I even speak. Crockett stared, unflinching. No, Mr. Trump. I want you accountable. The evidence already speaks louder than you. The silence that followed was electric, every camera capturing the moment. A single email shifted the battlefield. Trump leaned back, deliberately slower this time, as if reclaiming composure. His voice dropped low, calm, almost surgical. Where's the metadata, Congresswoman? You wave papers, you spit accusations, but you've yet to show the raw code. And while you're at it, let's remind everyone, I told my staff repeatedly, no violence, no exceptions. The words hung heavy, slicing the tension in a new direction. Crockett snapped her fingers toward the council table. A technician from the DOJ's Cyber Division Special Agent Brian Auten stepped forward, holding a sealed USB. Mr. Chairman, this drive contains the complete metadata package. SHA hash-verified IP logs intact. Origin traces back to Trump campaign server 4, domain suffix, .org, timestamp 2147 Eastern. No tampering detected. Reporters nearly fell out of their chairs. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson whispered to Justice Sotomayor, that's chain of custody. He can't brush it off. Trump didn't blink. He smiled thinly, turning to the camera as if speaking past the chamber. Metadata proves nothing about intent. Maybe a staffer worded it poorly, but I said it countless times, no violence. That was my rule. They ignored me, and now you want my head for their mistakes. Crockett cut in, her tone laced with scorn. A rule: show us the memo, show us the transcript. Because what we do have is an instruction: use the line about enemies. Clear as daylight. Meanwhile, no record exists of this so-called order to avoid violence. Trump slammed his hand on the desk, but his words stayed measured. I don't need to prove decency. My record proves it. The First Step Act freed thousands. Peace accords prevented wars. If I were the monster you paint, would any of that exist? Senator Sheldon Whitehouse muttered classic misdirection policy as cover for blood. Crockett rose again, voice like a blade. Peace accords don't erase graves. Jobs reports don't erase timestamps. You said no violence. Fine, produce it. Until then, your denial is just smoke without fire alarms. The gallery erupted, divided like a torn fabric. Some cheered Trump's poise, Others roared at Crockett's demand. Hashtags ignited. Where is the memo? No violence, show the proof. Chief Justice Roberts rubbed his forehead, visibly rattled. Senator Cory Booker whispered to the press bench, "He's stalling. The receipts are already alive." Trump leaned closer, eyes narrowed. "You don't want the truth, you want a villain. And if you can't find one, you'll invent him." Crockett's reply was ice. "No need to invent, Mr. Trump. The receipts already wrote your story." The silence afterward was volcanic, everyone waiting for the next eruption. The chamber froze as Trump's lawyer slid a glossy sleeve across the desk. Inside a single sheet stamped in bold caps, "No violence, no exceptions." Trump leaned into the mic, voice steady but laced with contempt. "There, my directive, my proof. Now tell America again that I ordered blood." Gasps rippled through the gallery. For a moment, even Crockett paused. Then she smirked, cold as steel. "A directive written after a man collapsed. That's not proof, Mr. Trump. That's alibi theater." The clerk rushed it to the experts. Inspector General Horowitz adjusted his glasses. "Header claims 9:10 p.m. Eastern, but the campaign system logs in UTC. The conversion markers are missing. That means tampered." Director Ray added, "Grim digital signature doesn't match." SPF failed. No record of circulation. Reporters erupted like wildfire. Screens lit up, "No violence memo versus enemy email." Anchors broke into live coverage. Trump slammed his fist. "You're nitpicking. I gave the order. I said no violence, period. Staff messed up the metadata, not me." Crockett snapped back instantly. "Metadata doesn't lie. Corpses don't lie. The only thing lying here is sitting in that chair." The words detonated in the gallery. Senator Ted Cruz shook his head furiously. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson whispered audibly. "She gutted him." Trump sneered, eyes narrowing. "You're a disgrace. You'd rather bury me than honor a patriot like Charlie Kirk. You turn grief into gasoline." Crockett slammed her palm on the desk, making microphones rattle. "Don't you dare say his name to shield yourself. You claim you said no violence. Then where's the time-stamped record? Where's the broadcast? Where's the proof?" A new screen lit up internal campaign chat logs. "Comms lead 9:53 p.m. Keep the enemy's line it lands. No mention of nonviolence, not a word." Chief Thomas Manger spoke flatly. "Capitol Police received no directive from the campaign before the rally. Zero." Trump's composure cracked. His voice spiked. "This is a setup. You people would crucify me even if I handed you peace itself." Crockett's reply cut like a knife. "Peace doesn't need forgery. Peace doesn't hide in doctored headers. Peace doesn't leave 2 minutes between a slogan and a corpse." The chamber exploded in noise. Cheers, jeers, chants echoing outside the stone walls. And for the first time, Trump's proof looked less like defense and more like a smoking gun. The chamber had barely cooled from the document clash when Jasmine Crockett reached into her folder. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with weight. She unfolded a single sheet. The gallery hushed. Her voice wavered at first, then steadied. "This is from Charlie Kirk's mother, written last night. She asked me to read it here." Trump crossed his arms, expression carved in stone. Reporters leaned so far forward their pens nearly snapped. Crockett began her tone, low, deliberate. "My son believed in leaders who promised protection. He repeated their words as shields. But words are not shields. Words did not save him. They abandoned him. And now my son is gone." The gallery gasped. Justice Sonia Sotomayor lowered her head. Senator Cory Booker wiped his eyes. Even Chief Justice Roberts shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Crockett swallowed hard, fighting back a crack in her voice. She writes, "I do not blame parties or policies. I blame the climate that turned podiums into battlegrounds. Leaders should not play with fire when it is sons and daughters who burn." The silence was suffocating. Trump finally leaned into his mic, his tone cold. "A grieving mother deserves compassion, but don't weaponize her pain against me. I never wanted this." Crockett snapped back, eyes blazing. "Then why feed the fire, Mr. Trump? Why let enemies be the drumbeat while families bury their children? Compassion doesn't come with caveats." Trump sneered. "You're exploiting her letter for applause. That's beneath this chamber. Crockett's palm slammed the desk, the sound like a crack of thunder. Beneath this chamber, what's beneath this chamber are Graves' mothers writing eulogies instead of birthday cards. And you dare call that theater? The gallery erupted, some in tears, others in outrage. Hashtags flared instantly. For the mothers, truth over theater. Crockett's voice dropped to a whisper, trembling but lethal. She asked one question in her closing line: how many more mothers must write these letters before leaders take responsibility? The words landed like a verdict. Trump's jaw clenched, but for once he had no rebuttal ready. Cameras zoomed in on his silence, capturing history as it suffocated the room. The echo of Charlie Kirk's mother's words still hung in the air when Trump finally leaned forward, both elbows pressing into the desk. His voice was lower than before, deliberate, almost intimate. As a father, I grieve too. I know loss. But grief must not replace facts. America cannot be run on tears alone. The words sliced through the silence. Some in the gallery nodded, others hissed. Justice Samuel Alito murmured to Roberts, "He's trying to humanize himself." Classic pivot. Crockett's eyes burned. She rose, a letter still trembling in her hand. Facts. The fact is, a mother buried her son because the line you made famous left his lips minutes before he fell. The fact is, your team pushed use the enemy's line as strategy. Don't you dare pit grief against the statistics. Trump's reply came sharper. Statistics matter because they prove progress. Lowest unemployment in half a century. Peace deals signed where wars were expected. Border security restored. I built a nation that worked. And now you stand here telling America I built coffins? Shameful. The insult detonated. Senator Bernie Sanders slammed his pen on the desk, muttering, "Jobs don't erase blood." Crockett struck back. Peace. You normalized conflict until rallies became combat zones. Prosperity. You built towers of numbers while democracy bled in the streets. Don't hide behind graphs when mothers are writing obituaries. Trump smirked, venom flashing in his tone. You sound rehearsed. Do you practice tragedy in front of a mirror before coming here? The theater sells on cable, not in history books. The chamber gasped. Senator Elizabeth Warren shot to her feet, pointing at him. That's cruelty, not leadership. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson whispered. He's poking the wound, not healing it. Crockett slammed her hand down, voice rising like a hammer. Theater, tell that to the family sitting in silence tonight, staring at an empty chair. Tell them this is a performance. You wouldn't dare because you know their eyes would burn through you. Trump snapped back louder now, cracks forming in his calm. You're twisting me into a monster. I said no violence. I never told anyone to pull a trigger. You blame me because you can't control radicals. Crockett's response was surgical. Monsters don't need to shout orders. They build climates where hate breathes on its own. And you built it brick by brick. The room quaked under the clash. Hashtags surged, grief versus facts. Empty chairs, who built this? And for the first time, Trump's slow tone no longer sounded like control. It sounded like defense. Outside chants pulsed like drums. Inside, the air burned with contradiction. Across living rooms, millions of Americans leaned forward, caught in the crossfire between emotion and reason. Some viewers clung to Trump's argument, the facts, the numbers, the jobs. Others clutched their chests as Crockett read from mothers and widows, grief louder than graphs. Hashtags fractured into rival armies. Facts matter versus for the mothers. Crockett's voice cut through. You brag about walls, wages, and treaties, but tell America this: can a paycheck replace a child lowered into the ground? The gallery erupted in murmurs. Justice Amy Coney Barrett leaned to Neil Gorsuch, whispering, she's framing data as cold arithmetic against human life. Trump shot back, jaw locked. And you frame tragedy as politics. I lifted millions out of poverty. That matters more than your sob stories. Gasps cracked the chamber. Senator Cory Booker slammed his hand on the desk. Sob stories. That's a mother's eulogy. Crockett advanced, eyes blazing. Sob stories. That's the sound of democracy bleeding. You reduce funerals to footnotes as if numbers excuse coffins. Trump leaned in, voice raised. You think governing is about feelings? No, it's about outcomes. I delivered results. You deliver drama. That's the truth. The insult landed like a whip. Reporters' pens screeched across notepads. Cable anchors interrupted programming to replay it on loop. You deliver drama. Crockett's reply came low lethal. Results, then explain why your words, your very slogans echoed before bullets flew. That's not the outcome. That's the consequence. The chamber froze. Justice Sotomayor whispered, that line will haunt him. Trump's eyes darted, lips pressing thin. He spoke slower now. Consequence belongs to criminals who act, not leaders who speak. Crockett fired back instantly. Criminals pull triggers. Leaders load chambers with words. You may not fire the shot, Mr. Trump, but you handed them the ammunition. The gallery erupted cheers, boos, raw noise. Social feeds flooded, but the truth was undeniable. Trump's words had already become bullets. The chamber was still vibrating from Crockett's last strike when she rose again, clutching a folder sealed with the DOJ insignia. The camera zoomed. Every lens was hungry. Her voice was firm, deliberate. We obtained 147 sworn affidavits from federal agents. Each one describes violent incidents where attackers shouted your slogans, Mr. Trump. Not gossip, not speculation, sworn testimony notarized and verified by the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. 147 voices from the ground, all pointing to the same pattern. The gallery gasped. Reporters scrambled to type 147 affidavits into their feeds. Screens across America lit up with breaking banners, 147 sworn testimonies linking violence to rallies. Trump leaned toward the microphone, his face hard, but his voice unnervingly calm. Affidavits written by bureaucrats with an agenda. Tell me, Jasmine, how many of those statements say I told them to attack? Not one. Not a single line. Crockett's retort came sharp, fueled by fire. Leadership isn't about whispering attack. It's about the culture you build. When citizens scream enemies, before they swing fists, when mobs storm buildings, waving your banners, these affidavits don't invent that reality, they capture it. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson leaned toward Justice Roberts, whispering, she's converting testimony into undeniable pattern. Trump let out a low chuckle laced with venom. So now every hothead with a flag becomes my crime. That's absurd. You're desperate for a villain, and you've chosen me. But history won't buy this circus. Crockett slammed her palm against the desk. The microphone shook. Circus, tell that to the agents who wrote under oath what they witnessed. 147 professionals risked careers to expose the truth. That's not circus, that's evidence with a pulse. The chamber erupted. Senator Lindsey Graham hissed, "This is theater," while Senator Amy Klobuchar shot back, "This is accountability." Trump's jaw twitched, his voice rising. You weaponized paperwork. Those agents wrote opinions, not facts. My record is facts, peace deals, jobs, security. That matters more than affidavits twisted by politics. Crockett leaned closer, voice razor thin. Peace deals don't erase sworn testimony. Jobs don't erase blood. And security doesn't live in 147 affidavits that scream the same story. Your words became their marching orders. The gallery shook with noise, boos, cheers, chaos. Hashtags surged into trends. 147 voices sworn truth receipts with blood. And as the noise thundered, one reality pressed down on the chamber like a storm. 147 sworn statements had turned accusation into pattern. The gallery still buzzed with the weight of 147 sworn testimonies when Trump leaned forward, shoulders squared. His voice came slow, measured, but laced with defiance. 99% of my rallies were peaceful. Families, flags, music, Americans coming together. The media only shows the 1%, the rare anomaly. Should I be judged by an outlier? The statement rolled like thunder across the chamber. Some nodded, others groaned. Justice Clarence Thomas scribbled furiously on his pad. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson muttered under her breath, 1% still bleeds. Crockett seized the opening, her tone slicing through. 1%, tell that to the 7 funerals. Tell that to the 29 fractured skulls. Tell that to the police officers still in therapy after crowds screamed your words while swinging fists. Gasps rippled. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse leaned toward Senator Josh Hawley, whispering, "She's making statistics bleed." Trump's lips curled into a sneer. 7 out of millions tragedy, yes, but don't twist tragedy into proof of guilt. I build hope. I gave voice to the forgotten. You turn hope into homicide to win applause. Crockett slammed a button on her desk. Screens around the chamber lit up one by one. Grainy videos filled the walls, angry mobs storming fences, smashing windows, chanting, "Enemies, enemies," in unison. Her voice cut through the images. These aren't headlines, Mr. Trump. These are affidavits made of flesh. Real footage. Real bruises. Real chants echoing your script. This is the 1% you call an anomaly. The gallery erupted, gasps shout silence. Reporters type furiously, "Crockett drops live video evidence." Hashtags spiked instantly. The 1% enemies chant, blood on camera. Trump's tone sharpened anger seeping through his calm. You cherry-pick riots, ignoring millions of peaceful supporters. You smear an entire movement for the sins of a few. Crockett leaned in, her eyes blazing. Movements don't chant enemies by accident. Movements don't fracture police shields by coincidence. Movements inherit the words of their leaders. And your words are all over these tapes. The chamber shuddered. Justice Sotomayor whispered to Roberts, "That tape will play on every news loop tonight." Trump gripped the mic, voice raised now. "This is a witch hunt dressed as justice. You hate me so much, you'll hang me with the actions of strangers." Crockett's final line sliced the air. Strangers don't chant your script in unison. They chant it because you gave them the words. The room fell into an uneasy hush. On screens across America, silence carried louder than any chant. The chamber still flickered from the images of violence when Trump leaned into his mic, voice rising with defiance. "History will absolve me." Nixon faced mobs against Vietnam and was never blamed for every protester. Reagan endured riots, yet no one painted him as the architect of chaos. Why should I be judged differently? The comparison detonated across the gallery. Some gasped, others muttered in disbelief. Senator Cory Booker shook his head violently. "He dares compare this to Reagan." Justice Elena Kagan whispered, "Reagan didn't chant enemies." Crockett's eyes locked on Trump. She rose slowly, every word a blade. Nixon resigned in disgrace. Reagan, for all his faults, never branded Americans as traitors. They didn't hand out scripts that mobs repeated like psalms. You aren't echoing their legacy, you're spitting on it. Trump shot back, his tone biting. "I built prosperity just as Reagan did. I fought communism of a new age, globalism, corruption, betrayal. My rallies were patriotism, not violence." Crockett slammed her palm on the desk, rattling the microphones. "Patriotism," Nixon taped lies in the Oval Office. "You posted yours in plain sight. Reagan spoke of a shining city. You painted half the country as enemies. Don't invoke their names to launder your record." The chamber rippled with applause and jeers. Reporters hammered headlines. Crockett, "Don't launder with Reagan." Trump sneered, his voice sharp. "And yet millions loved me more than they loved you. Reagan won landslides because he spoke truth. I did the same. You hate me for daring to be popular." Crockett leaned forward, her tone searing. "Popularity doesn't cleanse. Nixon was elected too until Watergate drowned him. History remembers not crowds, but consequences. And your consequence is on 147 affidavits, broken glass, and grieving families." Justice Sotomayor whispered audibly, "She's nailing him to the past." Trump raised his voice, hands gripping the desk. "History remembers strength. It remembers leaders who fought for their people, not critics who read letters on camera." Crockett delivered the kill shot. "History remembers Nixon's tapes. It remembers Reagan's words. And it will remember yours not as strength, but as poison injected into America's veins." The gallery erupted, a storm of clapping, shouting, and raw disbelief. Hashtags roared into the digital sky. History on trial, Nixon, Reagan. Trump poison words. And as the echoes shook the chamber, one truth became undeniable. This wasn't just a trial of a man, but a battle over how history itself would be written. The gallery was still shaking from the clash over Nixon and Reagan when Jasmine Crockett pulled out a red folder, thinner than the last but pulsing with tension. She held it high for the cameras, her voice steady, lethal. This is a leaked internal memo, dated October 18th, 2020, circulated among senior campaign staff. 4 words as the subject line: escalate the fight. The chamber gasped. Reporters snapped upright. Justice Elena Kagan leaned forward, whispering, "That's not strategy. That's incitement." Trump's jaw tightened, but he forced a smirk. Another convenient leak. Another forgery. Words without context. You'll destroy democracy over a memo drafted by some intern Crockett. Slam the folder open, revealing the timestamp projected onto the chamber screens. Metadata is clear. Created 9:14 p.m. Eastern, campaign server. Edited by comms director Stephen Miller. Verified by the DOJ's digital forensics team. Not speculation, chain of custody intact. The room convulsed. Senators whispered, judges scribbled, reporters typed like mad. Screens across America flashed the headline, "Escalate the fight linked to Trump campaign." Trump leaned into his mic, his voice dropping low, venomous. Escalate the fight meant escalate the campaign. Ads, speeches, debates. Not fists in the streets. You twist every word into blood. Crockett cut him down instantly. Then why Mr. Trump did 2 hours after this memo, your rally in Michigan chant, "Fight, fight, fight," until police dragged people out in cuffs. Coincidence or consequence? Gasps rippled like thunder. Justice Sotomayor whispered to Roberts, "This is the crack in his wall." Trump's voice rose louder, angrier. "I never told anyone to be violent. I said fight for your rights, fight at the ballot box. You're criminalizing free speech." Crockett's reply was icy steel. Free speech doesn't come with riot gear. Free speech doesn't smash windows or send officers to hospitals. Words shape culture. And your culture, Mr. Trump, is chaos with a campaign letterhead. The gallery split in 2 half, erupting in applause, half jeering. Hashtags detonated instantly. Escalate the fight memo. Metadata Trump culture. Trump slammed his fist down, red-faced now. "This is madness. You'll rewrite history with leaks and lies. Every politician says fight. Every one of them. Will you jail them all?" Crockett leaned forward, her voice a whisper, sharpened into a blade. "Every politician says fight. But only one politician's fight memo lined up with affidavits, broken glass, and coffins. And that politician is you." The silence after was brutal. The memo loomed larger than the folder, heavier than the room itself. And across the nation, millions of viewers understood they were no longer watching a clash of words, but the moment where paper became a weapon sharper than steel. The words "escalate the fight" still glowed on the chamber screens when Trump lurched forward, his tone frayed. "Fake, forged. Everyone knows leaks lie. This memo isn't real. It's just another witch hunt dressed in stationery." But the rebuttal landed flat. No documents, no affidavits, just denial echoing through marble. Crockett's gaze hardened. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Forged. Then explain the DOJ hash verification. Explain the campaign server logs. Explain the timestamp confirmed by your own IT staff under oath. Are they liars too?" The gallery stirred. Reporters whispered furiously. Justice Sotomayor leaned forward, murmuring, "He's got nothing." Trump gripped the microphone tighter, voice cracking at the edges. "Leaks always twist context. Everyone knows. They cut, paste, fabricate. That's what the swamp does." Crockett pounced. "Then show us the real memo, Mr. Trump. If this is fake, where's the authentic version? Where's your proof?" The silence that followed was louder than any chant. Trump shifted, eyes darting. No folder, no flash drive, nothing. Senator Amy Klobuchar whispered to Senator Lindsey Graham, "He's cornered." Graham muttered back, "He just needs to hold the line." Crockett leaned in, striking again. "You demand America trust your word while refusing to show a single scrap of paper. Receipts are on this table. You bring excuses, not evidence." Trump snapped, his volume rising. "Because this is all rigged, you want documents. They were shredded by the same deep state that's after me now." Everyone knows, the chamber gasped. Justice Roberts rubbed his forehead. Justice Kagan whispered sharply, "Shredded. That's not a defense. That's surrender." Crockett's reply was surgical. "You just admitted it. The documents are gone. Convenient. Every time truth corners you, it vanishes. Emails disappear, memos burn, orders evaporate, and yet the bodies stay. The gallery erupted, cheers, boos, raw disbelief. Reporters typed furiously, Crockett, the bodies stay. Trump tried again. Weaker now, voice quivering. Everyone knows I said peace. Everyone knows I said law and order. That's on record. That's what matters. Crockett fired back instantly. Law and order, show the clip where you said no violence, no exceptions. Because the clips we have are rallies where fists flew while you smiled from the stage. That's your record. That's what matters. The screens behind her lit up again. Rallies ending in chaos, police sirens' chants of fight spiraling out of control. Trump's face paled. His words faltered. This is unfair. Completely unfair. Crockett delivered the final cut of the moment. Unfair is mothers writing eulogies because a leader couldn't control his own fire. Unfair is calling evidence fake while offering none in return. Unfair is hiding behind lies while America buries its children. The chamber thundered with noise, but beneath it all, one truth rang out. Trump's armor had cracked, and denial was no longer a shield. The chamber was already on edge when a low rumble from outside bled through the marble walls. Reporters craned their necks. Microphones caught it first, thousands of voices chanting in unison. Escalate the fight, escalate the fight. Every head in the room turned toward the sound. Crockett didn't flinch. She leaned into her mic, eyes locked on Trump. That's not my crowd, Mr. Trump. That's yours. The memo spoke, and the streets listened. Trump's face flushed crimson. He shot up from his chair, fist pounding the table so hard the microphone shook. Enough of this. You people want blood, not truth. I told America to fight for their country, not to break bones. You twist my words into weapons and then call me the killer. Gas rippled through the chamber. Justice Roberts raised a hand for order, but the gavel barely cut through the noise. Justice Sotomayor muttered under her breath. He's unraveling. Crockett's tone was ice, her words cutting in the clean strokes. Unraveling is what mothers do at funerals. You, Mr. Trump, are just showing us the mask slipping. The gallery erupted, some applauding, others shouting. Senator Ted Cruz barked, "This is a witch hunt circus," while Senator Amy Klobuchar fired back, "No, this is justice. Live on camera." Trump leaned forward, veins bulging in his neck. His voice cracked between fury and desperation. You sit there pretending you care, but all you want is to destroy me. He jabbed a finger at Crockett, spit catching the light. You are the enemy. Worse than the mobs, worse than the press. You poison this chamber with lies. Crockett didn't blink. She whispered into the mic, her voice calm but lethal. You just called a member of Congress the enemy on live television. Thank you for proving my case. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the roar outside. The chant had grown louder, pounding against the walls like war drums. Escalate the fight. Escalate the fight. Justice Kagan shook her head, whispering to Justice Jackson, "This isn't just a hearing anymore. It's contagious." Trump slammed both palms on the table. His composure shredded. Those people are patriots. They chant because they love this country. Don't you dare smear them as thugs. Crockett's reply was swift, surgical. Patriots don't chant leaked memos. Patriots don't echo commands that end with police and hospitals. What you're hearing is not love of country, it's love of you. And that Mr. Trump is the sickness you unleashed. The chamber erupted in chaos, cheers, jeers, cries for order. The gavel hammered again and again, but the room was no longer listening. And for the first time, the nation watched Donald Trump's composure shatter, banging fists, spitting rage drowned out by a crowd outside, repeating the very words that could end him. The roar of the crowd still echoed outside when the hearing recessed for a brief break. But the fight didn't pause. It detonated across television screens, radio waves, and phone feeds from coast to coast. On MSNBC, the Chirons screamed in crimson, Crockett crushes, Trump memo confirmed. Clips replayed on a loop, Trump slamming the table, spitting rage, calling Crockett the enemy. Commentators leaned forward, voices urgent. This isn't just about a memo, said anchor Rachel Maddow. It's about a leader unraveling in real time. Crockett has receipts and Trump has rage. Switch channels and the story bent the other way. On Fox News, the headline blared, Trump denies memo leaks lie. A slow-motion clip of Trump pounding the table played under triumphant music. Sean Hannity thundered, "What you saw wasn't a meltdown. That was a man defending himself against a smear machine." Crockett is exploiting grief for theater. Trump is standing tall. The split was electric. In diners in Ohio, truckers shook their heads at Fox, muttering, "They're out to get him." In college dorms in California, students cheered MSNBC, chanting, Crockett's words, "Patriots don't chant," leaked memos. Social media fractured further. On Twitter, Crockett crushes, Trump shot to the top trend. Side by side, memo hoax surged from Trump loyalists. TikTok flooded with clips of Crockett reading Charlie Kirk's mother's letter, juxtaposed with Trump shouting, "Enough." Each video pulled millions of views within hours. Inside the chamber, the ripple reached the lawmakers themselves. Senator Elizabeth Warren showed her staff a headline on her iPad, "Trump's mask slips." Senator Ted Cruz shoved his phone into his aide's hand, snapping, "They're framing this as Watergate 2.0. We can't let it stick." Justice Roberts rubbed his temples, muttering to Justice Alito, "This isn't just testimony anymore. It's a media trial." When the session resumed, Crockett returned to the mic, her voice sharpened by the break. "America has already seen the tapes. They've read the memo. They've watched you call me the enemy on live television. The split outside these walls proves one thing. Truth is colliding with propaganda in real time." Trump barked back instantly, eyes wild. "And propaganda is your weapon. The media runs with your lies because they hate me. They spin every chant, every clip, every word." Crockett fired back, voice steady. "The media didn't write your memo. The media didn't forge your chants. They're just mirrors, Mr. Trump. And you're furious because you hate your own reflection." The chamber exploded with noise. Reporters raced to push out updates. Crockett Media is a mirror. And across the nation, two headlines crystallized the moment, one painting Trump as cornered by truth, the other painting Crockett as a manipulator. America wasn't just watching a hearing anymore. It was watching a war of narratives where the truth itself was on trial. The gavel slammed again, but order was an illusion. The real noise was outside the chants, the horns, the growing drumbeat of a divided nation. Inside the chamber, the split was sharper than marble, running like a visible crack down the aisle. Crockett leaned into her microphone, her tone sharper than steel. "Mr. Trump, the people are watching in real time. Half the nation sees your fury as proof, the other half sees it as deflection. But both halves know one thing: America's breaking." Trump's straightened lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't shout, he jabbed his words like knives. "America's breaking because politicians like you tell them to hate me. You and your media allies have poisoned this country for years. And now you sit here pretending to be shocked when division explodes." The gallery gasped. Reporters scribbled as Crockett fired back. "Poison you call accountability. Poison words have weight, Mr. Trump. They travel, they land, they ignite. 147 sworn affidavits say attackers shouted your slogans. That's not poison, that's evidence." Trump barked, a short laugh, bitter cutting. "Affidavits, people will sign anything under pressure. Where's the proof I ordered violence? Where's the line that says Trump commanded it?" Crockett's eyes narrowed, her voice lowering to a tone that forced silence in the room. "Leaders don't need to bark orders when they've built a culture that rewards rage. You didn't need to say shoot. You just had to say fight like hell." And they listened. The words hit like a hammer. Senator Lindsey Graham leaned toward Mitch McConnell, whispering, "She's cornering him without ever needing a gun." McConnell stayed still, eyes fixed ahead. Social feeds ignited. On one screen in the press row, "Division deepens" climbed the trending list. TikTok is filled with split-screen duets, one side Crockett with the memo the other, Trump pounding the table. Users captioned them, "Who broke America, decide." Justice Sonia Sotomayor, seated in the observer row, muttered to Justice Kagan, "This isn't testimony, it's a referendum." Trump's jaw tightened, but his voice cracked just enough to reveal the strain. "The country was angry long before me. I gave them a voice. You want to silence them. That's the truth." Crockett cut him down with a single sentence. "A voice that ends in funerals is not the truth, it's a weapon." The gallery erupted, gasps, whispers, even muffled applause before guards barked for order. On cable news, split screens glowed Crockett's fatal line versus Trump fights back. But inside that chamber, the split wasn't just media spin, it was human. Lawmakers sat on edge, trapped between loyalty and reality, as if the floor itself was tilting under their feet. The crack wasn't a metaphor anymore. It was visible in faces and whispers in the silence that followed every clash. America wasn't just divided, it was fracturing right there in plain sight. Trump leaned closer to the mic, forcing air through his chest, as if trying to summon the strength of his rallies. His voice came out clipped, rehearsed. This is a witch hunt. The words hit the room like a stone thrown into a canyon, loud at first, then echoing into hollowness. He wanted defiance, but the strain showed. His lips trembled, his hand gripped the table edge so tightly the veins bulged. The camera zoomed in, capturing not a warrior but a man straining to look unbroken. Crockett didn't answer. She didn't need to. She leaned back in her chair, folded her arms, and let the silence bleed into every corner of the chamber. The contrast was brutal. On one side, a former president barking tired lines. On the other, a congresswoman who knew silence could be sharper than steel. Senator Dick Durbin whispered to Amy Klobuchar. He said the words, but he didn't believe them. You can see it in his eyes. From the gallery, a voice shouted before security hushed it. Then why do you look guilty? The interruption rippled across headlines within minutes. Reporters scribbled furiously, their tweets firing off. In real time, Trump calls it a witch hunt, but his face tells another story. Crockett's silence is louder than Trump's denial. On CNN, Anderson Cooper narrated over the live feed, watch closely. This isn't defiance. Its performance is collapsing. His hand shakes every time he grips that mic. Trump tried to double down, his tone rising. They've been after me since day one. Crooked prosecutors, crooked media, crooked politicians. They want to destroy me because they know I'm the only one who can stand for you. But his voice cracked on destroy. The break was subtle but damning. Cameras caught it, social media looped it in seconds. Crockett slowly leaned forward just enough to draw every eye back to her, but still said nothing. Her expression was calm, unflinching, like a judge waiting for a guilty man to finish his excuses. The silence was unbearable. The crowd outside picked it up, chanting in sync with the cameras inside. He's scared, he's scared. Even Fox News hosts, usually his defenders, fumbled. Laura Ingram's voice wavered as she tried to spin strong words from Trump before the clip replayed, showing his face twisting under pressure. Crockett finally broke the silence, not with an accusation, but with a scalpel. History doesn't believe words, it believes faces. And today, your face just testified. The line landed like a verdict. Gasps erupted. Reporters raced to post it. Trump froze, his jaw clenched, eyes darting to the chair, as if begging for rescue. But no one moved. The chamber was paralyzed by Crockett's restraint and his own unraveling. The people watching didn't see a witch hunt. They saw a man hunted by his own reflection. The room was heavy with the residue of Trump's broken denial. Crockett leaned in, her voice slicing through the stagnant air. Words are not noise, Mr. Trump. They are signals, and inflamed words don't inspire unity, they burn democracy. A ripple moved through the gallery. People leaned forward as if her sentence had cracked something open. Reporters glanced at each other. They knew this was another line destined for headlines. Trump shook his head, muttering overblown rhetoric. Empty metaphors. Crockett pounced. Empty. Then explain this. She raised a folder thinner than the earlier memos, but deadlier in content. She snapped it open and read aloud. March 3rd, 2020. Internal campaign call. Transcript. Keep using the line enemies of the people. It energizes the base. Make it sharper. Signed off by senior staff with your initials in the margin. Gasps. Phones flew up in the gallery, snapping photos of the page projected on the overhead screen. Trump leaned forward, attempting calm, but his jaw twitched. Notes. Draft language. I don't write every word my staff pushes. Crockett didn't blink. But you approve them? The ink is yours? The margin notes are yours? A president doesn't get to cherry-pick glory and disown the wreckage. Leadership doesn't work that way. Justice Elena Kagan whispered to Justice Breyer. She's cornering him on authorship. It's surgical. Trump tried to shift. Even if I wrote those words, it doesn't mean violence was intended. It means passion, strong words. Every leader uses them. Reagan, Nixon, Clinton. They all did. Crockett slammed back strong words. Then why did those words echo minutes before bullets flew? Why do affidavits and FBI reports show attackers quoting your slogans? Reagan never buried followers for repeating his lines. Nixon never watched supporters fall mid-speech from gunfire tied to his catchphrases. This is different. This is blood. The crowd outside caught her last word and thundered in unison. Blood, blood, blood. Trump's knuckles whitened around his microphone. He tried to steady his tone. I gave people pride, jobs, security, peace in the Middle East. That's what my words built. Don't erase that with one tragedy. Crockett's voice turned low dangerous. One tragedy, Charlie Kirk's death, is not an outlier. It is the symbol of a culture you cultivated. And every denial makes the wound deeper. Pride doesn't die on a stage in Utah. Peace doesn't collapse with a slogan on its lips. That's not policy, Mr. Trump. That's consequence. Senator Cory Booker shook his head in disbelief, whispering, she just buried his defense with a single contrast: pride versus coffins. The silence in the chamber was electric, broken only by the furious scratching of pens. Trump opened his mouth, but no words followed. His face strained to hold composure, yet the cameras saw it, the twitch in his eye. The shallow breath, the man who had built empires with slogans, now cornered by them. Crockett leaned forward once more, her tone final. You called your words power. History now calls them fire. And the fire has burned your own house. The chamber shook, not from applause, but from the weight of recognition. Trump finally leaned toward the microphone, forcing his chest forward, as though posture could lend him power. His voice emerged uneven, the edge of a tremor, betraying the words before they even left his lips. Words inspire too, he began. They built this nation. They drove industry, they created hope. They carried us through wars, through recessions. Without words, you have nothing. The chamber was silent, but not in agreement. The silence had the air of disbelief, a nation watching a man reach for a lifeline that wasn't there. Crockett didn't interrupt. She let the pause thicken until the tension pressed against every rib in the room. When she finally spoke, her tone was steady, merciless. Words inspire, yes, but not when they come laced with enemies and blood. Lincoln's words bound a nation. FDR's words gave courage in despair. Your words, they divided families at kitchen tables and turned rallies into battlegrounds. Trump's nostrils flared. His eyes darted across the panel, searching for sympathy. Senator Josh Hawley muttered under his breath, "Stay strong, sir," but his pen tapped nervously against the desk. Trump tried again, louder this time. If I'm guilty for inspiring, then so is every leader before me. Reagan mocked the Soviets. Obama called out our enemies. Words have always been sharp. That doesn't make me responsible for every madman with a gun. Crockett's reply landed like a strike. Reagan's jokes didn't put coffins in front of cameras. Obama's speeches didn't end with bullets ripping through his own supporters. Don't twist history to cover blood. The gallery gasped audibly. Some clutched their phones, streaming live. Others stared, mouths open, waiting for his counterpunch. Trump gripped his mic so tightly, his knuckles blanched. He shot back, voice cracking mid-sentence. This isn't about blood. It's about a movement. Millions believe in me because I gave them strength. They love me because I speak for them. You want to take that away and call it justice. Crockett leaned forward, her gaze locking him in place. Strength that ends in death is not love. It's abuse. It's manipulation. And every tear shed by families like Charlie Kirk's proves it. The line cut him deeper than any accusation. His lips parted, but no response came. Cameras zoomed in, broadcasting the twitch at his temple, the way his jaw quivered as he tried to hold composure. Justice Clarence Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his seat, murmuring to Alito, "She's branding him in real time. Once the people believe this, he won't escape it." On cable news, the split screen was brutal. Trump's cracked tone against Crockett's surgical calm. Hashtags ignited instantly. Inspire or inflame dominated Twitter. The crowd outside erupted again, echoing through the stone walls. Not love abuse. Not love abuse. Trump attempted a final jab, softer this time, almost pleading. I never wanted violence. I never called for it. All I wanted was for people to fight for their country. Crockett didn't hesitate. Her voice was cold, final. And now your country is fighting itself. That's your legacy. The chamber froze. The silence this time wasn't disbelief. It was recognition. The chamber felt like a furnace. Every face was locked forward, every breath shallow. Trump's last plea fight for their country still hovered, fragile, hollow. Crockett didn't move immediately. She let the pause tighten around him, then slowly rose with a thin binder clutched in her hand. Her words came low, deliberate. "Mr. Trump, this is not theater. This is record." She snapped the binder open. Pages rattled like chains. A chain of directives, emails, call logs, signed memos circulated by your campaign in the weeks before Charlie Kirk's death. Each carrying the same instruction: escalate. Escalate in tone. Escalate in message. Escalate the fight. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Screens overhead flashed with scanned pages, subject lines reading, "Escalate now, enemies within, no retreat." Trump stiffened. His lips parted, but no sound followed. He reached for his mic, then let his hand drop as if even he knew denial had lost its edge. Crockett pressed harder. March 12th, a directive sent at 11:43 p.m. to regional organizers. Quote, "Opponents must not be treated as rivals. They must be treated as threats." April 5th, another directive. Frame dissent as betrayal. April 29th, push chants of fight, fight, fight. The crowd loves it. She held up the packet high enough for cameras to catch. These are not leaks. They are verified. Metadata has been authenticated by the Department of Justice. Every timestamp, every server, every signature has been traced. This isn't rumor, Mr. Trump. This is your machine. The gallery erupted in gasps. Some spectators shouted. Security barked for silence, but the moment had already detonated. Trump slammed his palm on the table. "Forgery, all of it. Everyone knows Washington leaks lies." His voice cracked mid-sentence, and the cameras caught it. Crockett didn't even flinch. "Then prove it. Release your servers. Release the originals. Show the people you have nothing to hide. Until then, these documents speak louder than your denials." The chamber quaked with whispers. Senator Mitt Romney leaned toward Susan Collins and muttered, "If those directives hold up, his legacy is finished." Outside, the crowd chanted louder, syncing with the evidence on the screen, "Escalate, escalate, escalate." Only now the chant wasn't triumph, it was accusation. Crockett leaned forward, her eyes locked on Trump. "You didn't just throw matches, Mr. Trump. You built a factory of fire. And yesterday, America saw what happens when sparks meet gasoline. A man is dead, families are grieving, and democracy itself is bleeding." Trump sat frozen, his face pale under the glare of the lights. His jaw clenched, his eyes darting, but no words followed. He looked like a fighter searching for a corner that didn't exist. Crockett's tone softened, but the weight grew heavier. "This isn't about partisanship. It isn't about scoring points. It's about whether this country can survive the politics of permanent war. Words can heal or they can destroy. And right now, America is standing at a crossroads." The gallery was silent now. No gasps, no whispers. Even the guards stood frozen. She let her voice drop to almost a whisper, forcing the nation to lean closer. "We must choose between speeches that build bridges and slogans that build graves. Between unity and endless division. Between healing and destruction." Her final words fell like a gavel strike. Do we have the courage to choose the path of healing? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the sound of millions inside and outside the chamber, realizing the question was no longer for Trump. It was for them. At the end of this hearing, one lesson rises above all. The noise words are never just words. They can wound or they can heal. In our daily lives, whether speaking to loved ones, colleagues, or strangers, we face the same choice. Do we add fuel to division or do we give voice to compassion? This video is created for educational and inspirational purposes under fair use, not to defame or attack any individual. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. It means the world. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share so more voices can join this journey. Until next time, stay strong, stay awake, and I'll see you in the next video.